switch on, and I would see about 50,000 would have been without power.
Oh, wow.
So it was a significant
That's a
contribution.
big,
Yeah, it's a big deal. And
Yeah,
so, but it was always, I lived in town for a while, and I also lived out, country just outside of town, and was serviced by the public utilities. So it's always interesting to watch the rate structure, whether they had city water or no city water, depending on my locations. Fascinating. In addition to that, I had a friend that worked for the power company, so kind of an insight into what's going on. You know, to see some of that. I was also a distribution manager at Home for a while, and we took a trip out to the Sutherland Airport, which is a dual tracks coming right from rail cars come in and go out at the same time. But they're taking complete rail cars forward, coal, flipping them upside down, flipping back. There's just constant flow and watching the pictures of coal and talcum powder. Increase electric cars and stuff. It's going to be increase in demand. It's all his fault. And we'll blame more stuff on him later, I'm sure. But I think it's one of those things that's part of our daily lives. And we look at electronic stuff we have in our homes today. It's amazing. You know, I just think it's an important part of our lives, and I think having a utility here is a plus. I'd like to see it stay there.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like you're getting interviewed again?
It's okay. It's all good.
It's okay.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
It's really not stressful. So it's fun meeting all the people and getting to know them. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you got to tour the facilities?
I did. Keith was good enough to ask me if I wanted to come in and take a tour. I met some of the guys and all the folks in the offices. So yeah, I know maybe this is about what's going on here, and
Yeah, we're the same.
I'll learn more. It'll just take time.
Well, how often, like water towers? We've not done a water tower since I've been here, but we have one coming up. That'll be a new project for everybody, so interesting.
A complete new.
Yeah, so we've only done obviously the refurb on the one.
I have a retake. Are we looking at replacing?
No, it'll be a refurbish.
Refurbish?
Yep.
I thought we were replacing the one way up there.
Nope.
No, we're still
Refurb.
gonna refurb again?
Yep.
Okay.
Rehab.
Okay, rehab.
Yeah.
Rehab.
Rehab.
It's a scarier term, I think.
That's what it is.
Yes.
That is expensive.
You messed up, John, you're still here, so
What's in these?
We had a discussion
What's in
about
the line?
we'll finish that later.
He shoots a 6.5 Creedmoor, so he's all right, Mike.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those ammunition things we'll talk later.
Yeah.
Okay, so technically on my clock it says 1 o'clock, so we can call to order. And if there is any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I actually have two.
Okay.
Just some information that came in since I put this together. Under other business, I would like to add two items. One is in regards to the Rum River Drive water main extension, the final pay voucher for WSB that I just want to share with the commission. And then the third item will be regarding the Salvation Army's heat share program. I want to provide some information to the commission about, it's something that we've done for quite a while with Salvation Army, and it's just to be able to continue to do that. So I do have those two items.
Okay. So those are the only two add-ons? Okay, so if someone wants to make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with those two additions.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. So moved. And then we open up to our public comment portion. just to remind everyone, it's limited to 3 minutes for you to make your comments, so open it up.
I just have a few questions. I got some information from Keith the other day to the email, but it was incomplete. I was wondering if we can get the rest of it.
What you asked for was a permit regarding the crossing of the Rum River with our water main. And when I looked into it, there actually are no permits. We have a license with the DNR. And so what we did is we went directly to the DNR and asked for a copy of the license, and that is what we forwarded to you directly. So that is a copy of the license for that water crossing.
This is incomplete. It
That is
says
what is on file with the DNR. That's their document.
it's incomplete. Can you ask them to get a complete copy?
We did the request. That's what they gave us.
Here it says, as shown on the attached application and map.
Okay.
Can I get that attached application and map?
Okay. That I will have to look into, but that's not the license. You asked for a permit, the license. So
A month before that, we asked, request all documents, maps, work orders, design plans, as-built plans of the water main at 411 Rum River Drive North, including under Highway 95, under West Branch of the Rum River Alley, 5th Street and 6th Street North. That was too much information for you to get all at one time. Okay, there's gotta be a faster way of getting this documentation to me.
as I mentioned in my reply, you are requesting information on a water main that was installed in the late 60s. You are asking for any and all documents, which is an archive search, and you even mentioned individual work orders. Those are day-to-day activities. We don't store things based on each section of water mains within the city. We have the maps, which you have already been provided with, but we don't record things based on a block-by-block basis. So in order to meet your request, I would need to have more detail. What specifically is it that you are looking for?
So you have no documentation, is that what my understanding is?
I am saying you are making a very large request.
Okay, but now, I wasn't here, you guys, this is your guys' business. So you don't have any kind of records of this water main, is that what I'm hearing?
No, you have already received the maps for that water main. That is our primary, I mean, that's
No,
primarily.
I have not received all the maps.
Which maps?
There is a map where our house had a curb stop going straight back. I don't have that map.
I have,
Can I
It
make
got moved in
oh yeah, go
1990.
ahead.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
You know, I used to work for the health department for 35 years, and with Homeland Security and stuff going on, and with terrorist acts and stuff, you gotta be very, very careful on what kind of information you give out. In fact, I would recommend not giving out that kind of information because of terrorist acts and what they can do. I think you're crossing a critical border of protecting your water mains and giving that information out to the public, which could be published onto the internet very easy. That's just my comment.
Okay.
So are you calling me a terrorist?
No, I'm saying that information should not be made public because it could get into terrorist acts.
This is in my yard. I have every right to everything that's in my yard.
In your yard, sure, no
Okay,
problem.
thank you.
But anything else?
That's where we're at now. It's in my
Okay.
yard.
That's
So
fine.
I'm entitled to this information, is what you're saying, if it's in my yard?
If it's in your yard, if it's available, I would say okay, but anything outside of it, I would say,
Well,
I
then,
wouldn't recommend doing
Just,
that.
I
if I
think
may,
this-
if I may, just to be clear, it is in a utility easement.
It's a utility easement.
Yes. Or
Okay.
city easement. Scott, is it interchangeable? Just say.
It's an alley right of way,
Yeah.
which is, it's publicly owned.
Yeah.
And I have an extinguishment of access by the state of that alley. So I don't know how you guys got this easement when there's an extinguishment access by the state.
It is what is platted with the county, as far as I understand.
Yep.
Okay, well, there's some, that's why I'm getting this documentation. I have it in 1971 as extinguishment of access, and obviously the plat hasn't been changed, and that's your guys' records to change this thing. You have that extinguishment of
No,
access.
what I said, this is what is, and then I will move on.
Yep, we have to move on, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but you
But-
can't be taken up by minutes when you have somebody calling me a terrorist over here. I should get those minutes back.
no, but we're actually on to 5 minutes from when we started, so I've given you more time than what we allot. I'm just,
My only point is, and please Scott, correct me if I'm stating this incorrectly, the official filing is with the county.
Correct.
In terms of where the easements are located, and they keep the official records on all of that.
Correct.
Yeah, my time is just as valuable as your time. I'm asking for documents, I get incomplete documents a month later. Like I said, my time is just as valuable as all your time. Okay, there's gotta be a faster way for me to get these documentations. I can't request that you send me incomplete documents and you calling me a terrorist. I don't think that's fair to me.
I'm sorry if that's the way it came across. It's not what I meant.
It wasn't,
Okay.
it didn't come across that way.
Well, yeah, but you only know half of the story, and I understand your concern. So I've been talking about this for 8 months now, a year now, trying to get this information. And here we keep on pushing an envelope to another day, another time, incomplete documents. I asked the state for records, 3 days tops.
okay, well, we
Yep.
do have to move on.
I make one comment.
Yeah, is there a place, the maps, yeah,
Well, I think my understanding of the statutes were his requests. They were brought up at our last meeting, city council meeting. And the city attorney Coleman gave a response. But there's one word in that request, procedure, reasonable request. Who defines what a reasonable request? And to me, that's the operative word in Mr. Gerard's request. Reasonable.
how much time to devote to it?
From what I could say, I see no reason to even have what he wants, but that's his business. But I don't think it's a reasonable request, in my opinion.
Can you explain the reason why you don't think it's reasonable for me to get my
50 years
documentation?
ago. What's the
It doesn't
difference?
matter, it's my yard, I have every right to it.
Okay, I still have to shut off the
I mean,
conversation.
I got WSB coming down there without permission. Did you guys give them permission to come down and do survey on my property? On 620? They came down and marked that alleyway and kept in the water main.
Kevin, we do have to move on. Your request was to ask if there's a map that went with that, and you can see if that
Map
is
and
available
application.
with the permit. And so we will do that,
And
okay?
620, I wanna know if you guys had WSB coming down there, surveying my property. And I
I'm not
also
sure.
wanna know the engineering, maps that you guys drawn up with WSB. I wanna know what pipes are coming in and out of there.
Okay.
On the whole area. Did you need a copy of my survey to get exact location? There's
What-
engineering pipes are coming in and out of there. I wanna know, which pipes are coming in and out of there. I have every right to this stuff.
You have already been provided a map of our infrastructure system in the location.
No,
that
I
you guys-
did not.
I have emails from 2013 and emails from 2014 in which you were a part of that and maps
Show
were
me,
provided.
I'd like to have another copy, because I didn't get it.
Okay, so, and this is where we do run into issues, is when we get multiple requests for the same information.
That's why I wanna get it all squared away today, so you know exactly what I want. You know, because like I said, I asked for this and you give me incomplete information. So that's why I wanna get things clear. Can I get on the agenda next month to get things squared away, to get exactly what I want?
We can submit, and if it's something other than what we've already discussed multiple times, then we would go from there,
I'll keep on
correct?
discussing until I get this stuff.
Well, wouldn't the appropriate venue for this to be is for Keith and Mr. Gerard to sit down?
And go through what actually is
I mean,
requested.
take a couple of minutes during the day and go through it.
He's never around.
No, I mean,
I don't even know, I didn't even know he,
do what you
Okay.
want, but
Okay.
I drive by here 4 times a day, his lights are always on in his office.
oh yeah.
If
so
I may
your call.
suggest something to the commission.
Okay,
In order to minimize the administrative burden for large information requests, the more detail we get, the better. Receiving requests that say any and all documents is a very large and very generic term. And it requires me to basically search through every sheet of paper that we have.
One last question, is there these boxes down in the basement collecting dust somewhere? You don't have any kind of records of
When it
this?
comes to information requests, I do think it would be prudent for us to recommend that any information request be as detailed and specific as possible. If there are, even the term maps, you can get in, you know, is it a 1968 map, a 1985 map, you see where I'm going with all
How would I
this.
have that information?
So-
You guys should have that information, not me. I
When-
don't know when the water main was put in. I mean, that's
When-
something you guys should have documented.
So, when we provide maps, and if it's not adequate, then we need to be given information as to what is inadequate about that. And I just think that would be a good policy for the commission going forward.
Okay.
So, something for us to think about.
Okay.
Can I add one thing there, Keith?
Yes, Scott?
We know that water main lays in a right-of-way, a utility easement. It's documented with the county that way. It's perfectly in our legal right to be there. So until we get documentation from the county that says that was vacated or is no longer a utility easement, our hands are tied.
Scott, that water isn't even on. You can't even show me how that water is even going running through there. The engineering maps don't even line up.
All right, thank you.
There is no water in that alleyway.
Madam Chairman, could I ask a question quick of Keith and you? Keith, if Mr. Gerard has to go to the county to make a request, would he have to file a data practices request with them to get the information as well?
I believe so.
Bob, what would you think? I mean, if there's anything sitting with Mille Lacs County that he needs, he would have to make a request of Pat Ullman to get it, or the department person in the county, correct?
I think the reference that this water sits in, if I understand, is an alley, which the alley is platted. And so, I know it's been interchanged with the term easement, but an alley is a public right-of-way, and it would be with that original plat.
Okay, so if the plat is held by Mille Lacs County, then that would be the agency where the document would reside?
But as I understand correct, and I don't know if this is the case because I haven't seen anything that's been provided so far, but he's already been provided the plat, I think. So I don't know that.
I have the plat map book, yes.
So
Okay.
it shows
But
the
I've been
alley.
out to the county and they have no more documentation on this water main. They do direct me back to the city.
Okay,
And they
that
wouldn't-
answers my question.
Yeah, I already been to the county.
Okay.
They
I've already
weren't-
been to the state.
Anything involving Princeton, the county will always say, go to the city, it's a municipality,
State
we
says
want
the same
nothing to
thing.
do with it. Because Princeton does their own thing. So I understand you guys are getting frustrated, but the county and the state level will both say it's municipality, go deal with them.
And I have
And this
documentation
is stuff
from-
that I've called them for other things, and all the plats are off for the entire Princeton area and Lax County.
Well, I just want to add, to close this out, is if, Keith, if you want to sit down with Mr. Gerard, I'd be happy to sit down with it and go over those maps that might have been provided in the past and go over where the water main is. So if you want to set that up, just let me know.
Okay. So with that, we'll move forward with you guys having a meeting.
You do the minute?
Yep.
No, we didn't do that.
Oh, no, we didn't. Sorry.
Point of order.
Okay, no, but thank
I
you.
thought maybe you had a new plan.
Nope. Sorry, skip back to 3 for a motion to approve the minutes from our July 24th meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from July 24th.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you, Jack. I'm sorry. Okay. We move past the public comment portion, and if we would like to make a motion or questions on approval of the accounts payable list.
And then just to be clear for Greg, the Minuteman stuff will be handled in a resolution at the end. They are listed in accounts payable, but those are handled as a separate resolution.
Make a motion to approve the accounts payable.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. So moved. And then we move on to reports and correspondence, where I hand it over to Keith.
Yeah, so I got a couple of things wanted to update the commission on. The first was that the SIPA board meeting was held August 14th in Fairmont. There were several large topics that were discussed. The first is regarding the Badger Cooley financing documents. This is in regards to a 345 kV transmission project in Wisconsin that SIPA will be part owner of. SIPA will be going out for a bond issuance in the amount of approximately $28 million. The financing was originally authorized in May of 2015 for up to $38 million, which was levelized over either 15 or 30 years, depending upon the final details of that. So as a result of SIPA going out for financing, there is a legal document that will need to be signed confirming details of our power service contract and other. It's more informative from what I've read through it. When these kind of financing documents have been signed in the past, it was usually the general manager and city administrator together to do it, and then the city attorney would just confirm all the legal aspects of it. So I have forwarded that information to Bob, so we will be just working on the logistics for that.
Can I just follow up on it? So you said that, excuse me, Keith, you had said the preliminary financing was authorized when?
2015. It was in the documents that I sent you.
2015?
Yeah. Or I should, that had the original signature from Mark and Connie back in 2015.
That was the original authorization of the financing?
That was the last time we've done it.
No, I know, but you had said that the preliminary financing was authorized.
Yeah, and I think now it's...
When was it authorized?
I think it was at 2015, but I'm not sure kind of when they went out for bonds or not. So...
Right, I'll look into it.
Yeah, I think it would... if you look through the documents, hopefully that answers all your questions. If not, let me know, and I can get SIPA to explain it in more detail. In addition, there was also a repair proposal for Blooming Prairie on one of their generators. They're actually replacing an old unit with a larger Caterpillar unit, and SIPA's handling that through their capacity purchase agreement, so we just talked through some of the details of that. SIPA is proposing to put together an EV charging project. I actually want to talk about that later on in the agenda, so I will come back to that at a later point. With the changing electric industry, SIPA is looking at where they want to go. I mean, for the first, since they were formed in the late 70s, early 80s, they've been pretty, hasn't been a whole lot of change, but with the advent of more renewables and more energy services, and with some of the membership changing, SIPA's kind of re-looking at how they want to structure themselves. So they're beginning to have some conversations on that. In addition, in the resource report, one thing I wanted to mention is that MISO, which is the Midwest Midwest Interconnection System Operator, is looking at a potential engine accreditation change. This is nothing definitive at the moment. This is just something that's being looked at. If it does, it does have the potential for changing some of our capacity payments on Unit 7. There's no impact at this time, but it is something I'm keeping an eye on for future years to see if it impacts us. The MMUA, which is the Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association annual meeting, was held in August 20th to the 21st. I found it very informative. A lot of great networking, talking with other utility general managers around the state. Some of the big topics we talked about was regarding AMI and understanding the benefits associated with that. That's something that had been started under Connie, and we're continuing on with an AMI conversion of our system. And what that will do is give us an ability to better understand our entire electric infrastructure system. We can potentially fine-tune our rates and look at a large variety of other services to provide.
Be quick, the AMI is
automated metering infrastructure. Yeah. So it really comes down to a lot more two-way communication between meters and gateways with the office. Has benefits both on the billing side, but also in terms of identifying outages, service quality, electric quality issues, things like that. So everybody's converting to it. The old system was called an AMR, which was an automatic meter reading system, which is the handhelds that our guys use when they go out and read it. Actually, a lot of the vendors just aren't even making AMRs anymore. everything's getting converted to an AMI system. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit on this so that we don't get caught later on down the road not being able to replace our AMI.
Thank you.
Yes. On the legislative and federal level, utilities are there's still a lot of conversation continuing to work on addressing carbon reduction efforts, distributed generation, interconnection rules, and the electrification of the economy. That gets back to the EVs that we mentioned earlier. I also wanted to give a congratulations to Connie Wangan. She won MMUA's Community Service Award at the award ceremony and banquet Tuesday night. It was very well deserved, so I was proud to be there and see her get that. In terms of the MMUA business developments, Vernell Roberts from Detroit Lakes Public Utility has been elected the new president for next year. MMUA will also be increasing their dues, which averages out about 4.5%. Looking at the impact on us, we will see an increase of 1.38% for next year. It's $139, so I'm not too worried about that. We also updated some articles of incorporation to include all various services that MMUA provides. Going into the electric department updates, as you know, we've been trying to identify a coolant leak within generator unit number 7. The intercoolers have been checked at higher temperatures and higher pressures, and no leaks were detected. That shifted our focus to some of the piping, and from what I heard yesterday, we have identified where the leak came from. So that pipe will be replaced, and that should take care of the problem that we've had with it. In order to get to that pipe, they had to really do a lot of disassembly on the engine. So we are taking advantage of that opportunity with some of the equipment being apart to replace thermostats, replace coolant, and some other maintenance activities in preparation for our warranty service extension, which will be in January. We will start having conversations with Ziegler about that warranty. It's something that we've held and has served us very well as we run into issues with that engine. The expectation is that warranty extension, which is for 5 years, is that?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
4 or 5 years. The budget number that I am working on is $94,000 for that warranty extension. So just that will be coming up at a later date. We're running our other engines for our monthly exercise starting tomorrow, and then next week we're planning on doing some valve replacements on units 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Keith, for clarification, the first unit you were talking about, is
Unit
that 7?
Yes.
And is that unit the one that's maintained by SIMPA, or is that the one that's maintained by the
That is
utilities?
That is ours.
7 is the city's. I'm sorry, the utility.
On the distribution system, the Rima Park project conversion from overhead to underground continues. We're expecting to wrap that up in the next couple of weeks. And we continue to have a lot of work on some new construction activities, both residential and commercial, and some ongoing tree trimming, just to protect the lines. On the water department side, yes.
About the distribution, I guess it's not exactly distribution, but kind of, you mentioned it earlier about reading meters.
Yes.
And you're converting to a
AMI.
What is our condensed version of our practice for reading meters in general?
Yeah, with the AMRs, again, we have like a handheld that the guys take in a truck. It's sometimes referred to as a drive-by meter reading. You can drive down the road and receive the signals from each meter. We do that on a monthly basis for our electrics and water.
Primarily a monthly basis for billing.
Yep, and then they bring the data back, it gets uploaded in the system, and that's how we generate our bills.
If you would be doing this more often, there would have to be a very good reason, I would assume. I can't think of an example.
The only time we've done extras is when the ownership of the property changes. When rentals move out, we'll do a final bill that will be off cycle. If for some reason, we find that a meter has failed and we replace it, we might come back in a week just to check to make sure that it's reading. But those are all just, outside the norm. This is just when there are problems that we do that. the vast majority of the time, it's just to do our monthly billing. On the water department side, we had our planned water outage on Thursday the 22nd. It went just as well as we could have hoped for. We started doing some increased efforts for our communication to customers. We posted the announcement on Friday the 16th on our Facebook site. We emailed customers, at least for those for which we had emails, that were directly affected by the outage on Monday the 19th. Posted door hangers the day before on Wednesday the 21st. The outage lasted from 9:05 a.m. to approximately 11 a.m. So I'm just trying to get the word out through as many avenues as I can. The repainting of 111 fire hydrants was completed August 22nd. We did need to wait a little bit for the paint to cure before we could reinstall our ID markers to match up with our GIS system, but that went very well. Working with T-Mobile on an upgrade for the middle water tower, and the middle water tower has been reseeded, so we took care of the landscaping there as well. With that, it brings us to the City of Princeton update, if Bob has anything that he would like to share.
Sure, I'd be happy to share a couple of things. Thanks, Keith. The Great Northern Trail is breaking ground probably next week. They're having their pre-construction 2 o'clock. DQ is starting their, they've been issued an early start permit for their excavation. Actually, they will probably be issued it later today. They're expected to start next week as well. And then we're in discussions with the township on 33rd and 83rd. Council okayed, with the council okayed the town taking the leadership on that project and to proceed with preliminary engineering on that project for their pro rata share. Those are the 3 main things.
We got the meeting coming up on September 5th for the audit. We do the audit with the city council. Hopefully that will go well.
Greg, are you able to attend that meeting? What's the date on that one?
September 5th, Thursday at 4:30.
I think so, let me double check. But I don't think I have anything.
Be at City Hall.
No, in fact, I've already got the city council work session on that day. Great.
Keith, maybe you could email me the name of the representative that will be present, just so I have his name. I'll probably list it.
Oh, yeah. It's Keith Porter.
Porter?
Yes.
Can I just, because I've found this, I have 16:30, I have 4:30 in the afternoon on my work session.
Correct. That's when the meeting starts, and I'm not, I don't know what the agenda is. I'll send you out on the agenda.
We'll probably put this to the beginning.
General manager report. I wanted to just give an update on a couple other items. We are currently working on updating our wellhead protection plan with the Minnesota Department of Health. From our first meeting, we decided to not change our DWSMA, which stands for Drinking Water Supply Management Area. The benefit of doing that is Department of Health notified me that they are allowing us to do what's called an easy plan. That means that we don't have to hire a consultant to reevaluate the DWSMA area. We can just use what was filed in the last wellhead protection plan. We estimate that that's going to save utility about $25,000 in cost by just reusing the same area. We are posting a job opening for a journeyman lineman this week. We are changing our legal representation from Dove Friedland to McGrane, Shea, Carnival, Strawn, and Lamb. I met with Jeremy from the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry to update our information in their lineman apprenticeship database. The state tracks that apprenticeship program, so we want to make sure that our data is up to date there. And then I have received results from the Department of Health regarding the copper and lead testing that we did last month. The findings are that we have not exceeded the action level for either lead or copper, and we're going to be sending out a mailer to the participating households informing them of the results at their location. And that's all I have for the general manager's report. Any questions?
Keith, I have a question regarding that wellhead protection plan. Maybe it's the WSB. What involvement is required from the city for consideration of a wellhead protection zone?
What are the considerations?
What involvement will the city have on the consideration of a wellhead protection plan?
Oh, you know, the biggest thing is they look at.
No, I know what it is.
Oh.
And that's, maybe you want to tell the other people. I know what it is, but.
Does everyone know what wellhead protection plan is? It's just basically they're trying to protect your water, finding the location of the water, which direction it's flowing, and looking at a time of travel. And they look at 5-year, 10-year time of travel. So if you have a spill somewhere up gradient, that it would take that long to get to your wells.
So then the question I had is in regards to the PUC looking at a wellhead protection zone, which they're doing. What consideration will the city need to have on that plan when it's updated?
Okay, when it's updated, the biggest part that the city would be involved in would be ordinances. If private wells are in town.
So we already have a wellhead protection ordinance, but will there be any steps that will be looked at?
Not that I know of.
So the city will not have to adopt it or have to review it or consider it at all?
Yeah, oh boy. I've been so far removed from that.
I see, so then let me just take it to the next
Yeah.
step. I'd like to be involved in those processes of the consideration of the changes or any consideration of the discussions that the PUC is having for the wellhead protection zone.
Okay.
Thank you. Because I believe the planning commission will be looked at and the city council will be looked at to approve those, to approve the update.
That makes sense. It really does.
Thank you.
So, just so I'm clear, do you feel that I should not have used the same duisma?
No, I feel I'd like to just be involved in the discussions.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I don't want to unintentionally.
Oh, I couldn't really say I wasn't involved in any of the considerations. So.
Okay, all right. We do have a meeting coming up next month, so I will send that to you, and you can.
Be appreciated.
Hopefully you can make that, and if there's a problem, let me know.
Be appreciated. Thank you.
That's good.
And, you talked about the groundwater flow and that stuff, but part of the Department of Health, are they like giving direction to the water utilities to get rid of the private wells? I mean, I know it's not a requirement as of this moment, but is there like a kind of a subtle push maybe?
Oh, definitely. They want to minimize as many private wells out there they can, especially in your wellhead area, because you can contaminate. It's fairly easy, and private wells are not regulated. They're not tested, and you just want to be very, very safe. Most cities have an ordinance that either do not allow private wells, or if they have private wells for watering or something in the town, they actually charge them a permit and they make them test it, for nitrates and coliform at the minimum. And so they just want to make sure that they're, first things first is the public's drinking water and the safety of that. Watering secondary. So they just want to make sure that that's protected. And it sounded like you do have an ordinance.
We do.
Yeah.
Regarding
private wells.
Private wells.
Yeah.
Is the DNR involved in any way?
There's more appropriations on who can take the water first, and priorities is cities, for drinking water. Second priorities is, irrigation for farm fields and for other things. And so they can tell a farmer to turn a well off and say, no, you can't, you can't irrigate this year because, the water table's so low. And they, if you pump over how many million gallons a year, you have to have a permit from the DNR and disclosing how much you pump, and you have to monitor it.
And, maybe like the city's
ball
fields.
Yep.
The city, or I don't know if they use 1 million gallons a year or not.
Yeah, but if they do, then they'd have to have a DNR permit on it.
Well, the school district has that well for irrigating. Does that fall into, because the DNR regulate that or control the flow or whatever?
Yep, they can pump 5 million gallons a year out of that one, is
Oh,
what
that's
their
all.
appropriation is on it.
Oh, they do have appropriation.
Which well?
Okay.
The school
I thought it
district.
was 3.
I believe it's 5 million. 5 million or 10 acres.
Are they permitted by the city then?
I don't believe so.
Probably was in before.
It was in before the ordinance come in.
Well, no, but I thought it was 3, and I thought they were capped at 3.
I
I
believe
mean, we
it's,
just had that discussion last year.
I believe it's 5.
Is that something the city should be looking to have?
That's probably a wellhead protection question.
Or would that be fall under the city, or would that fall under the PUC wellhead protection?
Probably the combination of the two, and so that was probably a good point that you're included in on this wellhead protection, because there's probably a little crossover on both of that.
Does the city monitor that and test that?
No, we don't.
So
Well, the
that,
PUC, I think, as I understand, Scott's involvement with the school was that he was aware of what rate of pumping occurs there, and as far as the increase that was considered when they added fields.
If it can be done, it would definitely be a good idea to at least test this well water for coliform
And nitrates.
and
Yep.
nitrate.
is that typical then? What you
Very
see?
typical. Yep. The
But
city of
the
St. Cloud does that. And every year, and it's the responsibility of the owner to give that to the city. And if they don't, then the city can go in, test it, charge them for it.
But does the DNR or DHS require that already?
I don't believe so. That was a city ordinance type thing, just to be a safety
So
factor.
we have a well with, private well with 3 to 5 million gallons, and there's no testing?
We have multiples.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So, does the city test any of those?
We haven't to this point.
Would that fall under the PUC or the city typically?
For the testing?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I would say the city, since they have the ordinance.
So you're saying we have the teeth, but not necessarily that we would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But it could affect the PUC's water. Exactly.
But that's where we could work together, to bringing Bob into the wellhead protection part of it, because
Sure.
we would need an ordinance passed.
Yeah.
I mean,
that could potentially be a major.
It's a $50 test for both of
No,
them.
I mean,
max.
if it was contaminated.
Oh, definitely.
City
But for
water
some
is-
reason, I think with the licensing that's required from the DNR, I think something's already done. Right?
Is there? Okay.
I'm pretty sure there's something that's already done.
You know, and the polluter always pays. And so if someone's polluting there, the well, and getting into the cities, it's the polluter pays, without a
But
doubt.
if we maybe have systems to protect that from happening, then
That'd be better. That's what they're trying to do.
if it's a simple test, that can be performed on a regular basis.
You know, if I remember from I was at least one of those meetings, didn't the school district self-reporting on their volume to the DNR?
yeah, they report directly to the DNR.
So
Where-
that's them, they have a meter, or you take their word for it, or whatever.
Right. Yep, there's a meter in there. Where we kind of get into an issue is like distinctive door design with their primary fire protection well.
Oh, yeah.
It's unmonitored. It's in a little room outside of the building that nobody ever goes in there. The very first time we were ever called into there was no screen on the vents into the well casing.
Sure.
And dead mice laying all over the place. Well, that's exactly 100 feet from our municipal well. And we fought like crazy with the city.
Well,
To
wait,
figure
they're in
out
the
what-
town, they're in the township.
Yep, because they're in the township.
Okay, so,
Baldwin
Yep.
Township?
Yeah, they're in Baldwin.
so we don't have any regulations. We can't do, city can't do anything.
No.
Well, kind of. We have
don't have
an ordinance
ordinance.
that says, you guys have an ordinance that says that we can't go outside city limits to provide somebody with water.
Okay.
And Connie and I tried to overturn that. And that did not go very well.
So we could have provided water possibly if the city changes that ordinance, then we could provide water for their sprinkler system, and then that would eliminate the possibility of that well contaminating the city water, right? Is that
Correct, yep.
Right, so maybe that's something that we could look into, you know, the city could look
No.
into.
Well, that happened with, when Bill, when Bill was going to, they did it next eventually, but we were looking at hooking them up without annexation. It never got that far,
Right.
but it was on the table.
What's been done to it?
What?
Mice are still swimming in it?
No, since we kind of got involved and helped him test pump it, we helped him get a vent screen back on it, just to keep the critters out of it.
Was
So-
it tested at that time?
Well, the other thing, this came up at a discussion with, when Senator Sandra Erickson was in, regarding some of the programs that are being put out through, I can't think of the name of the grant program, where there could be some incentives to provide manners in which some of these items might be able to be mitigated, such as, say, some of those costs to come into the city, to hook into the city water system, and to join the city limits rather than take advantage of some of the services without paying a fair share, so to
Oh,
speak.
yeah.
And I think that there's other items, when you come up with extension of services to some areas that are, say, experiencing poor water, that there's other manners in which incentives might be able to be had to be able to pick up some of those added costs to extend services to those areas.
Yep.
And I think that that is something that's probably a little bit more feasible and more beneficial to both those parties that experience those issues as well as then to the city.
Yep, there's money out there, you just gotta go after it, and the
I
wellhead
guess
protection's got money
my
too.
concern would be probably first to, you know, public safety, the public safety issue.
Yeah, and
sometimes
it's
that's gotta-
interesting,
that's gotta trump
if
how much
you look
money
at the
we-
wellhead protection zone, why the statutes only allow the controls in the city limits and not in the townships, even though the wells in the townships have just as much as an impact as they do in the city. That's that's the question that also should be asked, because it's not just,
It's not a perfect system.
No.
They're trying,
No.
working on it.
Yeah.
But I understand, that's a frustration, you know, because you're trying to protect the city's water.
and it is a major user.
Yeah.
How does
Good point.
Westlings tie into this? Years ago when they dug all those wells, anyone even monitoring that anymore?
Yes.
A year ago, we were doing a bunch of well sealing, and we were doing a joint effort with Mille Lacs County, doing a 50-50 split and sealing all the wells that we could, free of charge to the person that owned the well. That did come up, because there's almost 20 of them wells that got put in by the MPCA for the groundwater testing for pollution. I can't think of that gal's name from Mille Lacs County, but she checked into that, and the MP,
Lynn Gallis,
yes,
that's the person we worked with on the well, so.
she looked into that, and the MPA hadn't been testing it, but they were planning on testing it. That would have been last year, but they had told her that we couldn't use, or let me back up, the county couldn't use county money to seal the wells that the MPCA put in. If they were done monitoring them wells that the MPCA would pay to seal them, we couldn't.
Because those wells were probably under their jurisdiction, for
Correct.
testing and
Yep.
watering, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Was that through the soil and water then, when the Susan Shaw?
So are they're still testing and monitoring?
I haven't seen anybody do it. So I don't know if they actually did it, or,
How do we find out about that? Because that's probably, in my opinion, the number one thing to be looking at. You can test all the wells, but that's a known plume that was moving very quickly to the river. And actually, my understanding that it did indeed reach the river. But I don't know what was done to correct that.
I could reach out to Lynn again
That's been a long time,
and have her check into it again.
Those
The
would
wells are
be
still up.
great questions for your meeting with the wellhead protection people.
yeah.
I mean, those are all really good questions.
Yeah, that would be one that the city, and,
I don't know that Princeton's had a project like that where they put so many wells in to somewhat monitor that.
The last one that I know that happened was Hoffman Oil. They had to put 2 in. They had somebody drill through one of their fuel lines that goes out between the tank and where their pumps are. Somebody drilled through it, and they spilled more than 5 gallons. So they had to put in a couple of test wells. And it didn't sound like they were very deep. It sounded like they were even into the groundwater. They were.
Yeah, I can't tell you what PCA does because they have so many spills out there, and they take care of the priority ones. And
Yeah.
I do know these smaller ones are just letting them go and let them
Do
take
they-
care of themselves.
Do they generally report to the PUC at all in their findings, or the city?
No.
They just-
But to kind of answer the question, the priority issues come out in the wellhead protection zone study, or wellhead protection study that's taking place right now. So this question that you're asking now about that particular spill, and I'm not familiar with the 2 you mentioned, but if they're priority issues, they rank the top priority issues that should be addressed in the study, so we'll know those. You'll know those, sure.
Great.
So,
So the big action item out of that is, I'll work very closely with Bob, make sure he's included in all of our meetings with the Department of Health and the wellhead protection plan. Great. Thank you, everyone. That was good.
Yeah,
Oh, that was good.
The more we talked about it, the more it made sense to.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
The books are quite interesting when they come back, identifying all the wells that are out there that, just to inform you what's there, and that was our action. We pushed last time we went through this was to seal as many as possible, especially ones that were just sitting there. So, working with Mille Lacs County was great.
Yeah, you probably don't have a hard answer, but are there many private wells, just private wells I'm talking about, residential wells, are there many in Princeton left? There can't be too many.
Not too many. Not, I suppose, 20, 25, 30, somewhere in there.
I remember hearing a number like about 50 when I was on the county board here, but you're talking a while back.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate that was, I think.
And we were able to get quite a few of them when we were working with
I
Black
wonder if that
County.
wasn't the same time. I might have been involved or on the board maybe when that was going on or something.
Yeah.
It kind of rings a bell.
the summary is much more interesting than the 200 pages.
Okay, so move on to the unfinished business of the workflow study.
Yeah, the only thing I have to say on that is, Dan did give me a contact name to look into. I did talk to that individual, but they don't do workflow studies, so I need to follow up with someone else. I'm gonna lead on that.
Okay.
That's all I have on the workflow study.
Okay, and then the fleet management program.
I don't have an update at this time. I've been working on the other stuff, so I just.
Can I just ask you a quick question? Dan, I understand this is your proposal or something. Give me a quick thumbnail on
so,
what that fleet program is.
The fleet management program, it's basically, it plugged into your vehicles and equipment that kind of tracks the, locations, movement, hours, maintenance. Most companies have it on all their equipment and vehicles nowadays. It's just a management tool that helps to, it's asset protection to management tools. So.
Does that include a preventive maintenance schedule and that sort of thing or not?
Yeah, you can get as sophisticated as you want. Some of them, will tell you when everything needs to be, when the oil needs to be changed on a piece of equipment, or it'll track, all that right on a computer. So we used to, ours used to be all kept on paper and a file, and now it just comes up on the computer. Yeah, so it's, I also can pull up on a weekend and see, if a piece of equipment out in a certain area, and, I can pull it up on my phone, so if, let's say, I was thinking of this scenario, maybe there's an outage and you're on a weekend and you want to know which, how many crews are out, or you could potentially just look at a map to see, okay, we got crews working here and here, and if there's a storm or something. I mean, it covers a broad variety. I don't know that it's something that would be beneficial here or not. I just wanted to kind of look into it and see. I don't know. These guys would probably be able to look at it and decide whether it was something that, oh yeah, this could really help with this or that. I know.
I just wanted to get kind of idea. We didn't have places I've worked at, we had a fleet management, but we've had machinery and equipment management tools that have performed similar.
Right.
Which ones are up, which ones are down, which ones in between, which ones are being scheduled to come online, and that sort of things.
I believe that would also do your onboard diagnostics too.
Yeah.
If you're having trouble,
Yeah.
you would be able to look at that and know if it's something that can be serviced when you get back to the shop, or if it's something that you have to just plain shut it down for.
Yeah, because it plugs right into that, your plug-in for your ours do at least.
Yep.
And, you know, we use it for things, like if one crew wants to find where another crew is, they're generally not answering their phone when they're working out with equipment, so they can just, our crew leaders each have an iPad that has the program in it. They could pull up and see where each other are, if they need to go help the other crew. I mean, it's just a time saver, you know, rather than waiting for a reply back. It's just, they can just look it up and go, so.
How many trucks do you have?
Like 20. Not a real lot, but.
Oh, fair.
But
how many does the water and electric have?
14.
14? Oh, you were pretty good, you were just trying.
I was gonna say.
Try to do a little homework before I got there.
You know,
I didn't have that because I stole it from him, but yeah, because I was curious, I saw that coming up and I thought, I wonder how big fleet we have. But you know, one of the things that I started thinking was they don't have like 14 pickup trucks, they're not all the same. Some of it's a lift truck or, you know, there's specialty stuff here that I don't know anything about, but they're unique in a lot of ways. There's not a lot of interchangeability with
I'm not even
pole
sure if all
truck
our
or
trucks in the Public Works has the plug-in.
well, I mean, and you know, I got, when we implemented it, I got a little pushback from a few people, but I also found out they were stopping at garage sales.
no way.
Yeah, you know, so there's, it's just, you know,
Technology.
You know, I'm not sure that how many cities, you know, implement it, you know, for their maintenance departments and stuff.
Well, I stopped at garage sales for public relations.
You know, for snow plowing, for, you know, we can track the hours on the machinery for an average snowfall, and then we can do a lot of management that way. We can, you know, decide if we're we don't have enough equipment, or we don't, you know, so you can, there's just some really nice data that's just right there. It's plugged in, it's recorded. You can go back in history and look. So, I don't know, for me, it's, and for most, there's a reason that it's big, because it's a great management tool, and that was my purpose for that. The workflow study, Paul Twite was one of the gentlemen that interviewed for Keith's position. He's the Delano manager, PUC manager, and he had just mentioned that that was the best thing that they ever spent money on there. So that just piqued my interest. So, you know, he just, and I just thought it might be something worth taking a look into that.
So I'd be interested to see it. We've done, my background is manufacturing, sales and marketing.
Yeah.
I'm not a technician, I'm not an engineer, but the workflow studies that we've done in some of the manufacturing has changed. It's been eye-opening in many ways to see what was really happening when we put machinery on the floor, and how we were changing over. So the workflow can be helpful.
Yeah, what I like, it's more of a consultant where they come in and, because what got you here isn't necessarily gonna get you there. Or, well, why do you do it this way? Well, we've done it this way since 1950. You know, so, you know, you get a different outside perspective that can say, hey, well, have you thought about this? Oh, okay, well, and you know, that's those sort of things. And I know, you know, it's probably not the right time to do something like that, just with, you know, you being new, us being new, but I think it would, you know, at some point, be something that, you know, we can look into, we can check it out. So.
Do you want me to keep these two items on the agenda on an every month basis, or is it something we should check in every 6 months?
Yeah, I think, you know, maybe another 3 months from now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on to C, which is reserve policy and methodology.
Yeah, so actually talking with Dan quite a bit on this in terms of putting together a formalized cash reserve policy that kind of defines what the methodology is for how we came up with that. I think as the commission knows, the electric industry is a pretty capital intensive activity that requires us to have a certain amount of cash on hand. So, you know, for example, if a transformer fails and we need to spend $1 million right away to keep the grid operating, we need to be able to have the flexibility to do that. Large amounts of money in a cash reserve can sometimes intimidate some people, and obviously questions will come out of that. So the more that we can formalize what an appropriate cash reserve policy is, the better we'll be able to explain that to other individuals. So I started conducting some research looking at, since we're looking into this, what are all the factors that we should include. Typically for electric utilities, the factors that you want to include in a cash reserve policy include such things as your O&M expenses, your power cost, the historical investments that you have made into your system, what your annual debt payments are, as well as what your 5-year capital plan is. So a lot of these are going to be, we'll start getting the information as we start discussing budgets for next year that will feed into all of it. Typically, from what I'm hearing in terms of some O&M is some folks do 45 days, some do 90 to 120 days of O&M. Utilities that have high bond ratings could have over 150, and there's even some that have had 200 days of O&M in a cash reserve. So again, I think it's because there's a lot of other factors that go into play. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it's just dependent on our specific circumstances. And that's why I want to focus on coming up with a methodology. At some point, what I would like to do is bring to the commission kind of, okay, what assumptions do we think are reasonable for us? And then see where the math takes us. And then go from there. Yeah. The benefit of having a cash reserve policy is also to see if we're too low. Because if we're too low, then one of two things happens. Either we have to do some major reduction in expenditures and deferment of investments, or we have to raise rates. Again, part of the reason doing this exercise is to put some detail to it and see where we're at and make sure it's where we want to be as a utility. The fortunate thing is we are financially strong, so it's not like we're we're in a bad place right now. But I think it is good practice to have a more formalized policy.
Thank you. From what I understand too is some little bit of research I've done is the better position that the PUC is in affects the city's bond rating.
I have heard that anecdotally in other cities as well, so yeah. Yes, I agree with that as well.
So it's important for us to stay
yeah, so if we have a very, if we happen to go out and get a bond rating and we're very low, then I think we would have a detrimental impact on the city as well. That's my understanding. The other issues that we'll be looking at in terms of cash reserve policy is the typical practices to establish a minimum, not necessarily a maximum, because again, it depends on your 5-year capital investment plan and what activities you're looking at forward. It's really more there to protect the utility in the event of a major event. So that's why a minimum is established. If utility drops below the minimum, then typically what you do is identify a time period that you want to get those reserves back up. So really kind of set a goal going forward. So if you need to make some painful decisions, you know why. It's also based on the age of our system, which is basically the depreciation level that we're dealing with. If you have a fully depreciated system, you would hope to have a lot of cash on hand because you're going to be making some investments pretty quickly. If you're not well depreciated, then then obviously that would affect your cash reserve ability that way. Debt to equity ratios get important. The timing between expenses and revenues becomes important. Historical asset improvement, and then the contingency planning, being ready for the next ice storm or that next windstorm that comes through. One of the things that was pointed out is some utilities say, well, we can always get FEMA money. Well, FEMA can take 2 years. So we need to be able to carry ourselves even in the event of a major event. So those are all things that I'm looking into, and as I get more detailed with stuff together, I'll bring that from the commission to get your input.
And one of the big things I like about this is it's easy for somebody, any individual in the public, or any other position to grab a number out of the air and say, oh, look at that. But until that number is put in perspective, it's just a number. It can be $5, it can be $5 million, it can be $50 million, it's just a number. Until you put it in perspective, it's totally meaningless. And this will do that.
Well, and you will, people's experience with large amounts of capital expenditures is going to vary. So $3 million to one person might seem astronomical, and $3 million to someone who understands large capital expenditures might not seem like a very large number. So this should help lay out that process of how that number was, that reserve number is arrived at.
I saw a number of connected dividends here just recently, and it was, I don't know, $8 million or something. Well, they got about 1 million customers. That's about $8 a piece. I mean, what is that? That's a pretty neat number, really. It looks nice. Yeah, $8 million, that's a big number. But when you put it in perspective, it's really not that big of a deal.
Right.
Okay, so that one will be moving forward?
Yes, I will continue to work on that, and as I have information about it.
Okay, so then we'll move on to new business of the EV chargers.
Yeah, this I wanted to bring to your attention, and actually there is an attachment for you. It's sheet A in your packets. Essentially, what is happening is SIMPA is pursuing the potential idea of installing electric vehicle chargers throughout their entire community. And they're working with a contractor, Zeph Energy, who does a lot of the chargers. They're one of the bigger contractors out there, to see if SIMPA can supply chargers to each member community and then have the member install them. In essence, what that means for us, and you'll see this in the attachment, is if and this is all preliminary, so I'm just bringing this to your attention right now. What it would mean for Princeton is we would essentially get 4 different charging stations. The first 2 is a single port level 2 charger, so it's basically a 240 volt charging system. It does have ads on it, so if you think of it like your gas stations, when you go in and you see advertising, it will have those on there. It helps defray some of the costs because they're getting ad revenue for it. So we would have 2 of those. We would have 1 standard L2 with a 2-port system on it, as well as a single DC fast charger. When you think of the DC fast charger, those are your 100% electric vehicles. Think your Teslas, your Nissan Leafs, your Chevy Bolts, things like that, to get you a faster charge rate. So the idea at the moment is that SIMPA would provide those chargers free to each member. We're looking at about, north of $30,000. So let me just say that because I stumbled a little bit. North of $30,000 in equipment that we would get. That would be installed here. We would have to do the installation. And some of it with the placement, obviously, like with the ads, you want to have it in high traffic areas. You probably want to do, one on the north side of town, one on the south side of town, one in downtown. So actually, in order for the ad revenue cash flow to make sense, I need to get more details as to the specific locations, but we'll work on that. Our best guess is we would probably spend around $10,000 to $12,000 for installation. And that's because, we're looking at making sure that the voltage and the amperage is being met at those locations. And then obviously putting in the cabling, doing some trenching, some odds and ends that way, some wire and ductwork and things like that. So we're thinking $10,000 to $12,000. But for that $10,000 to $12,000 investment in installation, we get over $30,000.
I'm sorry, I missed that part. What did you say, the last part?
With that $10,000 to $12,000 of investment on our part, we will get over $30,000 worth of charge.
Do you get any revenue?
I haven't gotten to that part yet, so.
Sorry.
That's fine, I want to get through a couple different parts.
Thank you, go ahead.
But I will get to that. So, the other nice thing is, once we make the changes to the infrastructure, it's always going to be there. So even if the charger fails, you can always put another charger in. We've got the infrastructure in place, which is a nice benefit. I think electric vehicles will just continue to grow in popularity, so the more we have, I think the better. There are a lot of details to figure out. I mentioned the locations. There is a question between, are we going to be leasing the equipment or buying the equipment? There is maintenance contracts that we can pay for, or we can do it ourselves if we want. And so there's a lot of different things that we're looking at. The payment option is another one. Typically, you would pay, say, around $400 a year to do a credit card reader, basically, if you wanted to charge for the energy. Otherwise, some places do it for free. It depends on how it's being used. And those are all details that I think we would have to look at and figure out what makes sense as we move forward. I think, again, we're in the very preliminary stages right now. All SIP is looking for is this even something you think is worth thinking about? I would like to continue to pursue it and see where it leads, but I want to get the commission's input. Yes.
How does the one we currently have do?
I don't have, do we even have a meter on that, guys?
Electric meter, yeah.
Do we? I guess off the top of my head, I don't know.
To be honest, it's directly out my front door.
Yeah.
And there is actually quite a few people that use it. The gentleman who bought, I think, Distinctive Door, he uses it almost daily, if not maybe a couple of times a week, to charge his Tesla. And there's a couple other people that you repetitively see the same cars. So even though people say it doesn't get used, I can actually say it does get used quite a bit.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And the reason for doing a DC fast charger in downtown is that is where you would have a lot of Tesla owners who like to, tour the state. Gives them a stopping off point.
He currently, I think, either does work or may take a nap or go to lunch. It does take a little while. It's not a fast charger. So he is there for quite a while. I don't know necessarily what he does. He'll stop in to see us if we're doing something for him, or
DC fast charger is typically around 30 minutes.
Yeah. So he's there for a little while. So.
Yeah. So that is fast in terms of.
Yeah.
Is that a fast charger, or is that a? Do you have that? Does anybody here know?
What?
The charger we have now, is it a?
No,
it's a level 2.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I remember when they were putting in, there was a lot of discussion of location because they were talking about putting it in at the hotel, because people will stay overnight at the hotel and then the cars can charge there, and then it would be watched a little more. But I was at the block party and people would look at it and they're like, what is it? No one knew that it's actually an electric car charger, so maybe some more information about what that is, because everybody's like questioning what it's for.
I was going to say that is that we don't do a good job
Yeah,
promoting it. Like, essentially there should be something on 169 even saying we have it, that people would stop in to eat lunch on their way up north.
With Tesla drivers, it shows up on their computer.
Yeah, there's an app. Yeah.
So it's not something we're charging for?
No, it's free.
Oh, it's free.
Yeah, it's free.
To charge?
Yeah, there isn't a card reader on it, I don't think. Bob, there's not a card reader on it.
It's my understanding it's no charge.
Yeah, it's no charge.
But we could, I think, and I don't know who owns it actually, but it should be labeled.
Technically, I think the city owns it.
City owns it.
Yeah.
It was a grant.
Yeah, the
It was
city
put in,
ordinance-
the state gave everybody a
Well,
grant.
you
to
guys
come
wanna
in.
label it? It's your power.
Your charger.
Maybe it should be replaced, it's probably outmoded.
But that's something.
Maybe the
maybe,
infrastructure is in place already for one of your new ones, I don't know.
Yeah.
Consider
Yeah,
it
that
when
would
you
be-
do your
maybe
research.
If it's a better charger, maybe.
Oh, yeah, my initial plan is to put a DC fast charger downtown. That is just a level 2, so it's a different power
Yeah.
requirement.
Yeah.
Oh,
But yeah, I had thought about that as well. As far as I know though, that is working just fine.
Yeah, people use it, so I know
And,
it's
you know,
working.
that could be something that the downtown businesses could just promote, that's there just
Yeah.
to get people to stop and what are they gonna do for a half hour, but walk around.
Yeah, really, essentially, you would think there should be something
Yeah.
north and south promoting the fact that we have it, that people will stop in the
Yeah.
city to eat lunch, shop.
That one is definitely not a half hour charge.
No, it's a level 2. Yeah, question.
What do you do when somebody pulls up and charge and they're gone for 3 hours? They go golfing. How does the next person, I mean,
It's not that busy, I
Okay,
mean,
no,
so that
but
there's a line,
you
but
put some up and
Yeah.
people they just park there and leave a charge. What is the process of that for the next person that wants, Dan, you're in it, you've been there for 2 hours, I'm still waiting. What do you do there?
Yeah, I get as an EV owner, and typically there is an etiquette amongst the EVOs.
Okay.
Usually what you'll see is you'll have that charger, and really you could access it from 2 different spots. And whether you're driving a Volt or a Leaf, or you can tell if it's fully charged. So it's not just sitting there taking a spot. If that's the case, you can sometimes disconnect one and connect it to another one if somebody is parked there longer. When you're dealing with the level 2s, in order to get a full charge, you're really looking at more like an 8-hour time
Oh.
frame. So to get a full charge, it doesn't happen as often. So usually if somebody's there, it is actually putting energy into the car. What you're talking about is a capacity issue.
Yeah.
As more and more people had EVs, you will just simply need more and more stations.
I've seen the stations where they have 6 or 8 of these, just like a regular, you pull up and
Yeah.
charge, so.
So I think it's particularly interesting to me that you said that you see that charger being used quite a bit. So we probably have capacity. It would probably make sense to put in some more chargers if we get to the point where people are waiting.
we actually lost one avid user. Chuck Nagel used to use it all the time. He came into town for stuff. But yeah, the guy from Distinctive Door Design, right? That's the name of it.
Okay.
He has a Tesla that he uses it for, and there's a couple other ones that you recognize them repetitively, so.
And I do think it is a legitimate question. As it becomes more and more popular and is adopted by more and more people, then I think putting in a card reader of some sort is probably worth the expense at some point. I think right now we're still in the early stages of adoption, and so trying to encourage people to at least take a look at the technology, I think is valuable.
Who's subsidizing the cost right now, the city or the utility?
I believe the city is. I think that's on your meter, but I'm not sure. I'd have to confirm that.
Maybe you could let me know.
Is it? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, it is on the city?
Yeah, it's on a city meter.
It'd be interesting to know how much the actual use of getting, what it's costing, and if they have an idea, not
The
the,
bills are only $1 something a month.
oh, really.
How many? I'm sorry,
It's like $1 something a month.
We build a city for
a
them.
dollar?
Yeah.
Well, then you must be subsidizing it, because a dollar sure ain't paying for it.
Yeah. I can look into it.
Just a question.
I know there's people using it, because they're sitting out there in their car waiting.
I'm in town, all the time now.
Yeah. It's that green strip of curbing right in front of, across the street.
Just as an aside, because I have grandchildren in Iowa, we wind up going through down 35 to a little town called Dow's where we usually have lunch. Dow's is about 400 people or something. But they have 4 Tesla stations at that gas station. And I jokingly asked one of the guys inside, does anybody ever use these? You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Now, these are Tesla stations, and they are, you put your credit card in and it rings up the bill. But it's right off of 35, and so I suppose it's a major stopping point between Des Moines and Minneapolis or something, I don't know. I'm sure somebody
They
did
knew what
the
they were,
arith-
yeah.
did the arithmetic
Yeah.
somewhere. But there, I was surprised, you'd be surprised how many people pull up people, and there's 4 of them, big ones.
Well,
Maybe
there,
get the owner of Palmyra to do something like that. rather
oh
than
God,
so-
no.
And just so you know, this is just one example, this is ChartPoint. This, and it's got a barcode on it. That's how I pay for mine if I'm in different locations. So you just scan it under, kind of like you see at the grocery store, just a reader, and that's all it is. So it's not, in a lot of cases, the readers aren't even credit card readers, they're just barcode readers. And then they're tied into different accounts. And yeah.
It draws from.
So you have a Tesla?
No, I have a Chevy Volt.
Okay.
So it's a dual fuel.
I thought they paid really well in Princeton.
Not that well.
So I guess what I'm hearing is there is interest in at least continuing to have conversations with SIPA and see if this makes sense?
Yeah, what they're planning.
Okay, because if we did it, it would probably be 2020 activity to the infrastructure, so I can, yeah, I'll just continue the conversation, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
So it's the EV chargers. Going on to the cogeneration small power production tariff. Actually, this is just a housekeeping one under 8B. I realized that this tariff still had our 2018 rates in them when we did our 2019 tariffs. This inadvertently got missed, so I'm just asking the commission to approve an update to the tariff to reflect our current retail rates. I do.
My turn. I'd like to make a motion to update the production tariffs, PUC.
No, second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. So moved.
The next item is Resolution 19-09, which is the authorizing of services for Minuteman Press. It includes the accounts payable for the months of June, July, and August for some printing. This includes the stickers that we had talked about earlier this year, and some web hosting for our current website. And so that resolution is in front of you as well. So yes, that would require a motion.
Or it's your last orange tab.
Oh, yes.
I saw you
It
fumble
got
through
folded
it.
over.
Yep.
Sure. Okay. This requires a motion as well? Is that what
Yes.
you said? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 19-09 as stated here.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved.
Should she know that she's.
Yeah, I was just thinking the
Yeah.
same thing. We should just note that Lydia
Yeah.
abstained from that vote.
Okay. So then we're on to other business.
I just want to mention, actually at the request of Bob, I'm looking into an economic development tariff. SIPA has implemented an economic development effort, an economic development tariff. I do not see that we have ever implemented our own tariff. It would be one of the things we would have to do in order to offer that. What it is SIPA is offering for certain really large, our larger customers, an economic development incentive for reinvestment in their facilities. Or if there is a new large customer coming in, it's basically an energy credit. But in order to do that, there's a lot of parts to it, so it would take some time, but before we would be able to even offer it, we would have to pass our own tariff that would reflect the SIPA tariff as well. So at the moment, I just want to let you know it's something that I'm looking into and seeing what all we have to put together in order to do that.
Okay.
So if I can make a couple comments on it, just to highlight the program a little bit, as I understand it, just roughly, is what this would allow you to do for, and this second year it's a 40%, if I'm not mistaken, the third year it's a 30% reduction in their cost, in their power factor cost. So you're providing an incentive. Now, I don't know how much is provided through the tariff that's put on locally and how much is provided by SIMPA. That's the part where I have a few questions, where I asked Keith to gather some information from SIMPA. But it seems that there are other energy companies that are offering incentives, and that we as a community would be best to be able to put something in place that we're also able to help retain and attract additional industry, especially when they're using power. Now, Keith, maybe you could share with us how the tariff would work. Would that tariff be on all customers, or how would that work?
It is only on for your 5, well, it's written one of 2 ways, because SIMPA has large utilities, small utilities. It is for customers over 250 kW in demand. So it's really focused on the large industrials. Or your 5 largest, because there are some SIMPA members who might have customers that don't meet that but are important to that community. The way the tariff is written is it's for new customers over 250 kW or existing customers who add at least 250 kW of new load onto the system. So it is a development project to get more on the system. You are correct in that there is a clause in there for a company that is under economic distress. I need to find out more how that is defined. I don't know at the moment.
So do we have, what percentage of our customers are 250K and above? Or that
What
meet that
percentage?
usage?
It's small. I'm trying to, I think we're probably talking maybe a dozen. I'm trying to figure that out.
Okay. Not too many.
Without going into specifics on individual customers, we are looking at our larger ones. This is not something for everybody, because there's a lot of administrative tasks that need to be done as well. The way the tariff is written is it's available, again, once you meet the size requirements. You also have to have received some sort of economic development assistance through either the state, county, or local government. So they're the ones that's kind of how they do it, so that we're not being the judge on jury on everything. It's just that if people qualify for these other programs, then we'll sweeten the pot a little bit.
And this is only for the power factor rate, adjustment on the power factor charge?
Energy
charge, okay. So,
but again, that is up to the commission as to how they want to write the tariff.
And is the funds going to be coming from SIMPA then?
SIMPA, yes.
Okay, so they're not coming from the local?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Coming from the SIMPA?
It is a SIMPA
combined
yeah.
pot of money, so to speak.
Right.
Kind of like rather funded from the state rather than, and I know the SIMPA is different than the state, but rather than funded by a local taxpayer, it be coming from SIMPA, the state.
You want to make it clear it's not being funded by the other customers.
Well, I wanted to verify.
Yeah.
It's not
And then,
it's not being funded by a ratepayer or ratepayers directly.
although the tariff must raise some of it.
Well, SIMPA gets their money through their power charge to us. So I mean, everybody who's a SIMPA member is paying into this fund,
Right,
just whether
paying
you're getting it
power
back.
They allocate so
So-
much money probably for this
All
program.
the cities that are in SIMPA are paying into this.
Right over a huge area.
So this is a program where we would be able to then offer something similar as other communities are offering.
Well, not, as far as I know, not all the SIMPA members have implemented a tariff yet.
Well, this is a new program too.
Correct.
Is this something that can be used to acquire new large users in new territory then also?
No, it's not for expansion of the service territories, if that's your question. It is more to retain and invest in the current, within your current customer base. And there also is a clause in there, again, being a SIMPA community, that we're not stealing a customer from North Branch or Mora, who was also a SIMPA community. So they didn't want, they didn't want the utility going after each
Move
other.
from one SIMPA territory to
Right,
another SIMPA
then you
and get
can't
your
get it.
power reduced.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think this is a good effort that the local community, and the PUC, the city as well as the PUC, should be in touch with and on top of to make sure that we're offering everything we can.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't need to make a motion on that?
Not
we're
at
just
this
moving
time,
forward
not
with it?
until I actually have a tariff to bring in front of you. I just wanted to let you know that that's something that I'm working on.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
So then we're on to 9B, Rum River Drive water main payment.
And I have to go to a pre-construction meeting, excuse me.
As you may recall, well, except for Frank, it was, I don't know if it was the last meeting or the one before that, I had provided you with a WSB invoice regarding the relocation of the water main at the roundabout. We still had an outstanding amount of approximately $10,000. You approved, you had a motion to approve the current $140,000. This is that final pay voucher. We just got it this morning, so I thought I would just get it in front of you. That once we pay off this amount, then we are completely done with the roundabout relocation. So I think on this, we did a motion on the last one. We can do a motion on this one.
The new roundabout that just opened.
Yeah, on the south end of town. So it's just like, you know, this is the final one,
Okay.
and then that project is done.
Does anybody have any questions on it? It's open, so that's exciting.
Yes,
Makes your life a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's nice, it's, the traffic really moves nice through there, so. I'll make a motion to approve the final payment.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. So moved.
Have you been down there when working, getting out to see if it's working?
Not at 3 o'clock yet, but
That's gonna be the true
at
test.
lunch, just coming here, I went to Subway and come out of there around lunchtime where a lot of people do leave for lunch. And, I mean, there was a zoo of cars moving, but nonstop, so.
Well, you hope that people be a little courteous if somebody's coming out of the gas station or the car, you know, when it's busy.
Yeah, I was,
But they'll kind of leave a little gap.
and I watched a load of logs come through there, and I was surprised how they didn't really have to slow down a whole lot,
Well,
so
these roundabouts.
it's designed pretty good, so, and I thought, boy, he's moving pretty quick, I was waiting for to see the log do this as he went around, it didn't move it. It didn't seem to, so, yeah.
Okay, so then we move on to see Salvation Army heat share.
Yeah, and I wanted to just share these brochures with each of you as well. This came up also just recently. Salvation Army does this heat share program. Princeton Public Utilities has participated in this program for a while. The idea, and we send out brochures like this in our bills, the idea is if people want to contribute to the Salvation Army to help those less fortunate who might be having problems, especially during the winter in terms of meeting their heating needs. It's a philanthropic kind of effort to try to help those. So what we have done is, you know, there's an agreement that we signed with Salvation Army that we would promote the program. And actually what I've since learned is that we as a utility will match any individual contribution up to $50. So we have done that as well to also help out. Seems like a great program. I'd like to continue to do it. And unless there's any questions or concerns.
Where do the people apply for this?
It would be through the Salvation Army. It's not through us. Yeah,
Right.
we're just collecting the money on their behalf. And then, like I said, we've been doing a match historically.
I wasn't aware that this was an option for residents.
I think Salvation Army is in Malacca, is where to go to apply.
Usually, I refer people to like Lakes and Pines.
Yes, and we do that as well.
So this is separate from Lakes and Pines, and they vet them to see if they're actually in need, so then they don't have to deal with it.
Yes, again, all we do is just
Right.
act as a
Right.
collection for them. We give them the money and then they do all the administrative.
Go back to my county time, can't remember exactly how it laid out, but I was actually on a committee that, I don't know, monthly, couple, 3 times a year, that's involved with the Salvation Army. And that's one of the few charities that's really a real charity. I mean, their money goes to benefit of the people that need it. You know, their overhead costs are very little compared to so many charities where half the money goes to the overhead.
Yeah.
The Salvation Army, American Legion, couple, 3 of them.
Do you want us to make a motion, we're gonna continue with the program?
I don't think I need one unless
Okay.
you feel that we should. It's something that we have been doing, and so I'm just planning on continuing it unless there's a concern raised.
Well, as long as we're matching, we should probably have a motion.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
we're contributing to the pot there, so,
Okay.
and I'm okay with that. As long as that's money going out with our name on the check, then I think we ought to have something that says, we checked off on it, it's okay.
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 Somebody comes back
And
says,
it's never been a large amount. I mean, if it gets to be very valuable, we'll let you know, and then we can deal with it at that time. But it's been a very minor program, but it helps out a few people, so I think it's good to do.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to continue with the Salvation Army's program, each year program.
A second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved. And so I think we're at the end of our meeting for today, so we are adjourned at 2:37, 2:32, sorry.